So this is how it ends. You know, ladies and gentlemen, I don't even know where to begin. I really don't. And evidently, neither did any of the people working on this sequel trilogy. So if you couldn't tell by the title, I just got back from seeing Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. And to prove it to the very select few individuals who I know, they're just going to see the intro of this video and they're going to assume certain things like, oh, if you disagree with my opinion, that means you never saw the movie in the first place and you're just trying to appeal to the masses and sheep, make up your own mind. Yeah. Opening night fan event lanyard and opening night commemorative pin. It's crazy to me that we live in a society, we live in a world where the prequel trilogy are no longer considered the worst of the Star Wars movie canon. Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker is not only going to go down as a disappointing finale to the sequel trilogy, but it is going to go down as one of the greatest examples of squandered potential I have seen in my adult life. And it's so funny, because that bar used to be held by the prequel trilogy. I mean, whether or not you like the movies, there are some redeeming aspects of films like Revenge of the Sith. There's some good things scattered throughout the lore, but as a whole, those movies are not good. They aren't. Like, realistically, when you take off your nostalgia goggles of the fact that you grew up watching those movies, they have a lot in there that aren't good, but what they did for the Star Wars universe as a whole and giving us stuff like the Clone Wars TV series and just all the other stuff sprinkled in between, that's something you can never take away from the prequels. The sequel trilogy, something we've been dreaming of for decades, finally venturing out into the future, bold new direction, new stories to be told. A new generation taking the guard from the old. How you managed to screw that shit up in 4 years, I will never know. It takes a very certain kind of individual to do that. But we'll touch on that later. So, The Rise of Skywalker. There was a lot going into this movie, especially following The Last Jedi. Now, I'm not going to sit here and air all of my grievances towards that movie. I actually did an entire video when I saw it 2 years ago. But one thing that, whether or not you liked The Last Jedi or you hated The Last Jedi, that you cannot deny, you cannot refute this, is that The Last Jedi closed the door on so many plot points in this trilogy. So many that at the end of The Last Jedi, you're realistically wondering where they could take this story. Because there was nothing there to hook you. Nothing to be like, oh my God, I can't wait for the third movie. What's going to happen? No, it kind of ends there. It acts as a sequel to The Force Awakens while also being episode 9 in a weird sense. So what are you going to do in that situation? Because you have another movie that's coming out in 2 years. Well, you end up with something like The Rise of Skywalker. The Rise of Skywalker. I cannot believe I'm saying this. Is going to go down as the most pointless, contrived, nostalgia-filled, member-berry roller coaster of a movie I have ever seen. With no real payoff, scenarios and situations involving characters that aren't earned, and so much vomit exposition, I just wanted to walk out the theater. And I'm not saying that to be a sensationalist. I'm not saying this for clicks and views. Why would I wait 4.5 minutes to say that? I say this being a Star Wars fan. Not even as big a fan as some of the people out there who are just saying that, deaf to these people and all that. No, I'm just saying this is a person who grew up loving these movies, loving the lore, and was excited to see what happens. Because The Force Awakens was the perfect setup movie. It laid the foundation of things to come. Granted, there were a couple of things that were give and take in The Force Awakens. It wasn't the most original movie out there. It was essentially a New Hope 2.0. But for what it did as a foundation movie to get into people's minds that, hey, Star Wars is back, it fulfilled its purpose. J.J. Abrams and his mystery box style storytelling that a lot of people aren't a fan of, it was actually relevant in this scenario. Why? Because this is the first movie. It's setting stuff up for the future. It's planting all the seeds so that they can grow and blossom into these beautiful trees with amazing leaves for generations to come, for so many stories to be told from all this, like they did with the original trilogy and like they did with the prequels. And then shit just don't went left with The Last Jedi, and oh my god, like how in a post MCU Avengers world, how do you screw up a 3-movie story, a trilogy? There's only 3 movies here. Somehow they did with this. How? We had one Star Wars trilogy 40 years ago. We had one Star Wars trilogy like 15 years ago. And then we have this. It's like they couldn't learn from all the things on what not to do. So The Rise of Skywalker opens. And you're wondering, like, okay, I saw the trailers for this movie. How are they going to explain certain things? Because, there's just a logical thing to do. Because some things won't make any sense. Like, how are they going to bring back Palpatine? Because didn't he die at the end of Return of the Jedi? Yeah, he did. So how do they bring him back? Well, listen. You like Palpatine, right? Oh, you love Palpatine. You loved him in Return of the Jedi. Oh, I know you loved him even more in the prequel trilogy. You know those memes like, do it, and I am the Senate. You guys love that stuff, right? Yeah? Yeah, well, we're going to put that Palpatine back in this movie. Wait, you want to know why he's in the movie? It's Palpatine. You guys love him. We're bringing him back, guys. Unlimited power. That's it. There's no reason why Palpatine is in this movie. There's no logical reason whatsoever. Literally, the movie opens. And spoilers, yeah, I'm sorry, guys. I know normally I do a spoiler-filled review and then a spoiler-free one. I'm not doing it for this. No. The movie opens and the opening crawl says, "The dead speak." Palpatine is alive. He's amassing his forces. He's been hiding out for so many years, and he's built this new army, the Final Empire, with all these Star Destroyers that have the power of Death Stars, because everything makes sense now. Everything has to have the power of Death Stars. Give me a phone that has the power of the Death Star, then I'll be happy. And that's it. There's no reason why Palpatine is in this movie other than the fact that the movie needs Palpatine to be in this movie. And why does Palpatine need to be in this movie? Because fan service. You guys love Star Wars. Yeah, remember in the prequel trilogy? Remember in the prequel trilogy when Palpatine did that 180? Remember in the prequel trilogy when he was fighting Yoda? Remember that? Yeah, you remember. That's South Park's. Oh my god. How is that so accurate and relevant now? It's crazy. It was a parody back then, but it's so true. So Kylo Ren goes to explore the Sith cave, and that's where Palpatine is, and he's evidently been alive this whole time. And not only has Palpatine been alive this whole time, but he's been pulling the strings behind the scenes. So you know how you had Snoke, who was the big bad in the last movie? Yeah, that was actually Palpatine. That was one of his clones. And he's been using these clones to, run amok in the galaxy, right? So he used that clone to seduce Kylo Ren and then get revenge on the Skywalkers that way, because he was going to take one of their own and use him against him. That's what I assume is what happened, because the movie doesn't tell you why. He doesn't tell you why he created someone like Snoke to seduce Kylo Ren. He doesn't. You just have to assume. Maybe they'll explain to us in a comic book later down the road. That's going to be a lot of this movie. Comics books. Later down the road, you'll figure out the reason why. But not only that, but Palpatine has been making clones. So was he actually there in the Return of the Jedi? Was that a clone? We don't know. Maybe one of his clones dying actually affected him and he ended up being on that life support thing. We don't know. Because the movie doesn't explain it to you. And literally, everything in this movie happens because the movie needs it to happen. No logical explanation, no build-up whatsoever. Just because the movie needs it. So Kylo Ren comes in here and he's going to kill Palpatine because evidently Kylo Ren wants to be the supreme leader himself. And that's it. In the end of The Last Jedi, it's like, I want to rule it all. Why? No reason. But then Palpatine's like, wait, boy. I have been whispering in your ear this whole time, and there's someone else. You must bring her to me. And he's like, no, Why would I do that? Because I can give you power, boy. Power you could never attain on your own. And Kylo Ren's like, okay. That's literally it. That's literally it. That's how he seduces Kylo Ren to go bring Rey to him. I wish I was kidding. I wish. So, moving along. We get reunited with our compadres, you know, the trio, the lovable trio from The Force Awakens who ain't so lovable anymore. I don't know how this happened. How in the world do you take actors like Daisy Ridley, Oscar Isaac, and John freaking Boyega? And we'll touch on that later. We'll touch on what they did to Finn in this trilogy. But how you take them and make their interactions so irritating and frustrating and annoying is beyond me because they're such likable actors. But in this movie, I didn't give two shits about them. In fact, I was hoping that one of them would bite the bullet because it's squandered potential. This in Star Wars, we have had groups of people who've had disagreements in the past about how to do things. But at the end of the day, you know, they were still united as one. They were family, and we saw that. We had an entire trilogy like that of these characters and the relationships growing. What was that thing called? Oh yeah, it was called A New Hope through Return of the Jedi. In the prequel trilogies. Oh my god, why am I using prequel as the bar? Why? In the prequel trilogy, where you don't believe Anakin and Obi-Wan have a relationship whatsoever until the third movie, where you're like, you know, I could see why Obi-Wan's sad he's leaving, you know, to the dark side. Why is that more believable than their relationship in this movie? I just look at them and I'm just like, stop being a dick, Rey. Stop being a dick, Poe. Stop being a dick, Finn. That's literally what it is. And they're vomiting out exposition to try to explain this story to you all throughout the movie. And it's just so ham-fisted. It's so ham-fisted. It makes no sense whatsoever. And it's so evident, too. To the point where they're saying some things, they're vomiting so much exposition that they're throwing out all these things in there. You're just like, wait, what do you mean by that? What do you mean by that? Are you going to explain it later? They never do. They never do. Where are they going to explain it? Maybe in the books, maybe in the comics, or maybe in a spin-off series on Disney Plus. Whoa, lore building. This is what you guys want, right? No. So the whole point of this movie is they have to find Darth Vader's Wayfinder. And the whole point of this movie, literally, it's just them going from one MacGuffin to the next MacGuffin to the next MacGuffin. It's like a video game. And I'm not saying that lightly, because literally, you guys know when you play a video game, you get a mission, right? You get a mission. Let's say you gotta go find, I don't know, you gotta go find a pop figure. Whatever. You gotta find a pop figure. And you're going on there, and along the way, there's something that prohibits you from getting to that end point, but you got to go do something else on a completely different world to go and do that. So you go and do that, and you get into that, and you go somewhere else to do the same thing. That's literally the whole point of the movie. It's one giant scavenger hunt. One giant scavenger hunt with no real resolution whatsoever. There's nothing organic about what's moving this. It's what's driving this movie forward. Nothing. You don't get anything. You go here, you go with that, and it's so much like a video game, it's not even funny. I swear to God, literally, they go to one planet, they're looking for something, the enemies are finding them at every junction, they have to go, run, do this, oh, there's a lightsaber fight, pew, 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 and then they go to another world, and they do the same thing, and they do the same thing, and they do the same thing. I wish I was kidding. I really did. And all throughout the movie, you're being beaten over the head with all the things you learned in The Last Jedi and The Force Awakens about things like, oh, you know, Hope's not dead. Good people will fight if we lead them. And, the First Order. This. That. And, just. This is what we get for the finale. There's no stakes whatsoever. These characters get involved in like fights with the First Order, Final Order, Empire, Stormtroopers, whatever. And it's like literally God mode on a video game. There's no real threat whatsoever. It's not like, oh my God, my heart is racing. Like, what's happening? Like, oh my God, one of them could lie. No, perfect shot here. Perfect shot there. Chewbacca's kidnapped. Well, we might be dead. Yeah. Oh, but he's actually alive. And there's just so much exposition. So much fucking exposition in this movie. Because they have to create some type of semblance of a story. Literally. There's so many times where the characters are just sitting there and they're explaining the plot to you. Like, oh, I have to go here because I felt it. Yeah. Literally, that's what it is. And the other character was like, oh, okay, let's do that. Let's do that. So along the way, not only do you get a ton of MacGuffins, but you get what I think is the most offensive part in this movie, outside of all that contrived nonsense. You get the throwbacks, the callbacks, the Easter eggs. Lando Calrissian is one of them. Why is Lando in this movie? Well, because you know Lando. You know Lando, played by Billy D. Williams, introduced in The Empire Strikes Back. You know the guy, he was Han's friend, he was a smuggler. You know, good double-crossing two-bit scoundrel. You know Lando. He originally had the Millennium Falcon. And you also know Lando. He's played by Donald Glover in that really horrible Star Wars movie that didn't need to happen because nobody wants to know the origin story of a Han Solo movie, especially with an actor who doesn't resonate Han Solo whatsoever. But you know Lando. He's a great guy. You know? Remember? You remember Lando? Yeah. He's in this movie. And they're like, Lando, come fight with us with the Resistance. He's like, no, my flying days are over, kid. And then you're thinking like, what got Lando to that point where he's saying that? Because that's not really a Lando thing to do. Are we going to learn anything about it? No. Will we learn something about it? Maybe in a book, maybe in a comic book, or maybe in a prequel, midquel, sequel series starring Donald Glover on Disney Plus. Subscribe now, you guys. Please go see our movie. And then Lando's there just because they needed to have another legacy character to bring people back. Lando's role in this movie could have been played by anybody. And speaking of characters who are just in this movie for no reason whatsoever, you got this character by the name of Zori Bliss, played by Kerry Russell, who's Poe's friend from these old spice smuggling days. He was a spice runner. It was supposed to be a funny laugh, like, ha, hee, hee, you know. That would have been great if we actually learned or cared about Poe in this movie. Poe in this sequel trilogy, and what pains me to say this, is that he's the embodiment of toxic masculinity. Literally. They make Poe such a dick in this movie. Such a freaking dick. Such a character assassination to him. But he has his friend Zori Bliss who's there. Why is she there? So she can help them out, help them escape, and she's going to give them this thing so they can get on the thing. Like I said, everything in this movie happens because the movie needs it to happen. Does it make sense? No. But we need it to happen. And then Lando shows up at the final fight. And then she shows up at the final fight. Why? Why? Because kumbaya, my lord, kumbaya, and we're friends, and everyone band together because we have a spark that'll light the fire that'll burn the Force Order down. Yeah. Nothing interesting about her character happens. Nothing interesting about Lando happens. Nothing interesting about any of these characters happen. So why are we here? We're here because Palpatine and Rey and the Jedi and Kylo. Well, let's talk about that, yeah. So amongst this whole MacGuffin journey, amongst all this stuff happening, we end up with the final conflict, and I'm rushing straight to the movie because this is where shit gets really dumb. The final conflict between Rey and Palpatine. Now, the big reveal in this movie is that Rey is, in fact, not a nobody. She comes from somebody. She's the granddaughter of Sheev Palpatine. Why? Because the movie needs it to happen. This movie is such a... Listen, I'm not here to defend The Last Jedi at all. I'm not. But the way they try to ham fist and throw shade at The Last Jedi is so corny. Because Rey came from nobody in Force Awakens, right? Though she didn't know where she came from. I'm sorry. Then The Last Jedi, it was revealed she came from nobody. And now she's not a nobody. Her parents were nobodies, but they did that with purpose because they saw Palpatine in the writing on the wall and they didn't want to go down that path. So they did this to protect her. It is so... Really? Because the dialogue, I shit you not, the dialogue in this movie plays out like it did in The Last Jedi. Your parents were junkers. They sold you for scraps. In this movie, they say the same thing, but it's like, they were nobodies by choice. They were actually royalty. And can we just talk about Palpatine for a second? So is he over here just... First off, who would sleep with Palpatine? I'm just trying to figure it out. Was this before or after the whole Force lightning corruption on the face? I got to figure that out because this man Palpatine, if he did this after the fact, this man was just straight up dropping dick in different galaxies. Maybe he has kids in different armadas. I don't know. But that happened. And Palpatine knows about Rey because he just does. This whole time he didn't do anything, you know. He just knows about her though after all this. And evidently Leia and Luke knew about Rey being related to Palpatine, but they didn't say anything because the whole point is that you are not defined by your blood and your lineage because everything makes sense. Yeah. So that vital piece of information that you've been withholding this whole time, you just don't do anything with it. Matter of fact, how did Luke even know about this? Because if you looked at him in The Last Jedi, he was just like, how are you so powerful? So what did he do? Did he like talk to Leia after the fact? Like when he sees her in the Force heaven? Oh, that's another thing in this movie. Leia dies. Leia dies. Just in the most ham-fisted way possible. It's not explained. Like, and I get it. The late great Carrie Fisher is unfortunately no longer with us. They only had a certain amount of footage that they could salvage to work with. I get it. You know, I'm going to save a whole video on what they should have done. But yeah, she just dies. She literally just dies and passes away, I guess, because her heart can't go on or something. And in her last words, she tries to do a force bond with Kylo Ren, and it temporarily distracts him, and he's like, oh. And then Rey stabs him, and they're just like, oh. Heal! Oh, let's talk about Rey and her powers. Like, I know people like to throw the term Mary Sue around. And I know this movie's trying to give them a reason why Rey is so powerful, because she's a Palpatine. But when Rey is over here bending the Force to her will, she's able to do like force teleportation of items, and she's able to shoot lightning, and she's able to force heal and force revive. There's so much stuff in this movie that I would be okay with if they actually built it up and we actually saw this grow organically. But no, it's just, it needs it for the movie to happen. Yeah. That's what it's all about in 2019. Why create a coherent narrative? We need this to happen. So force heal, force lightning, force teleportation. Great. So Kylo Ren finally rejects the dark side and he becomes Ben Solo. You question whether or not he's going to turn back or forth because he's been doing this for 3 movies now. It's annoying at this point. But he finally does after he has one last vision of his father. And he's like, oh, yes, I am right. So I'm going to throw my lightsaber in there. And then he faces off against the Knights of Ren, who, again, are squandered in this movie. But they're there because Kylo Ren needs opposition that are more than just stormtroopers. So the Knights of Ren are there, and he's surrounded, and he's getting his ass kicked because he threw away his lightsaber. So what does Rey do? She force teleports one of her lightsabers to him. Because everything makes sense. And the reason why they're able to do this is because there's this thing called the Force Dyad. The Force Dyad, which only comes once every, 4 generations, where 2 Jedi, or 2 people with the Force, whatever, are just so powerful, and they have this connection to literally warp reality, where they can send things to one another. I wish I was making this up. This is literally fanfiction. I've been talking so much that my computer is almost falling asleep, so let me not. But yeah, that's what they're doing. And you would think that, all right, you know what, Kylo Ren has been redeemed. It's really contrived, and it's not earned. And Rey is over here being Supergirl. They're going to take down Palpatine. This is going to be awesome. And nope. Palpatine's just like, I'll kill you both. Oh, I can suck the life out of you guys. Oh, because this Force Dyad. Yeah, and I suck the life out of you guys. And now it makes him like the Emperor at the end of Return of the Jedi. And he's just all powerful. I'm not going to lie. He actually did look kind of creepy in this. And I would honestly care if this was earned. But he goes from wanting to have Rey strike him down so he could be reincarnated into her because he is one with the Sith and the Sith have been living for generations. Stupid, I know, but bear with it. And he wants Rey to strike him down because then she'll become evil and he'll live through her. It's like some Lion King 2. He lives in you, hey-oh, him-may-oh, he lives in me. He watches over us. That's literally Palpatine in this movie. Holy shit. Damn. So he wants that to happen, but Rey's like, no, I'll never turn to the dark side. And the whole evil Rey thing, we know it was bullshit. It was just a vision. You know, that would have been interesting if they actually had an evil aspect of Rey in this trilogy. But no, it takes too much work. Why would we do that? And so they're getting ready to fight, but then he saps the life out of them. And he just knocks Kylo Ren off the cliff. And then he's going to fight Rey. And Rey's like, no, the Jedi, they're all within me. And then she powers up and she does a dual lightsaber thing to deflect the lightning. That's it. There's no fight. None of it whatsoever. And Palpatine dies for the second time. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't dead. Who knows at this point? Is he dead? Nobody knows. And then amidst all that, Rey dies because I guess she used the last of her energy to fight Palpatine after he sucked all that stuff away. And Ben's like, no, don't die. And he does the Force healing, which ends up giving his life energy to her. And then they kiss, and he just dies. He's one with the Force now. He's been redeemed. And that's it. That's how it ends. That's the big conflict. what they apparently have been building up for this entire sequel trilogy. J.J. Abrams, I call shenanigans on that, bro. This has been the plan the whole time? To end like that? But it doesn't end. There is one more scene. Rey returns to Tatooine. And why does Rey go back to Tatooine? Because we could see Luke's old house. Why would she even know where that is? Like, who would she talk to say, where is Tatooine? Where is this? Like, why would anyone even want to go back to Tatooine? Like, Luke left Tatooine for a reason. He didn't like Tatooine. And once his aunt and uncle were killed, he was just like, you know what? There is nothing left for me here. That's it. So why would she go back? Why? Because you remember Tatooine? You remember Tatooine, right? With the dual sunset and everything. Oh, it's so iconic. And she goes there so she can bury both Luke and Leia's lightsabers. And then someone asks her, who are you, Rey? And she's like, I'm Rey. I'm Rey Skywalker. She takes their name because your blood does not define who you are. And to her, she feels more like the daughter of Luke and Leia than Palpatine. You know, an interesting thing that would be great if they actually built this up over the trilogy. And that's how it ends, ladies and gentlemen. That is the entirety of The Rise of Skywalker. This is how we end the 40-year saga. This is it. A contrived member-berry roller coaster where Palpatine is just in this for the sake of, where there's just nothing but this Rey and Kylo Ren back and forth. Will they not turn? Who's going to turn first? Really? I feel like we got in that for 3 movies and nothing's organic about it. It just feels forced. It's like a lot of other things in this movies. The cameos, forced. The dialogue, forced. Everything happening to bring us to this point, forced. Oh, so we went from the hope and the resistance being diminished at the end of The Last Jedi, but now they suddenly show up at the end of the movie. Why? Why would any of them want to show up? Especially now. You would say, oh, because Snoke is dead. No. They show up because the movie needs them to show up. If I heard that Palpatine was coming back, I'd be like, it's going to be a tough call. But they just show up at the end because they need them in the final battle. Because there's only like 15 resistance ships. And that's it. That's it. You know? Like that's literally it. They just have a giant space battle and all that. Squandered potential. Squandered potential. This entire trilogy. Nothing about this sequel trilogy at all. Force Awakens, Last Jedi, Rise of Skywalker. Nothing about this has furthered my enjoyment of the Star Wars lore. Nothing from this I have ever found interesting. Like, oh wow, I can't wait to see them expand upon it. Not at all. The sequel trilogy had things like that. The prequels had things like that. In this movie, what are you going to do? It left you with more questions than answers. You still don't know certain things. What are they going to do? Explain it in a supplemental material? I'm sorry, but that's for little tiny things, not big giant plot points. And let's talk about Finn for a second. Okay? I'm going to take a personal offense to this, and I'm just going off the rails right now. This is just me being the petty black guy with glasses that I am. But the fact that I am a black man, seeing someone like Finn being at the forefront of the Star Wars series, that meant a lot to me. You know, I'm not going to make this into all representation matters or whatever. No, but that was cool because the way they were hyping up Finn, oh, he might be a Jedi. Maybe they could both be Jedi. And the fact that he wasn't, I was like, okay, you know what? That's fine. Let's see what they do with this character. And you do nothing with his character. You do nothing with John Boyega for 3 movies. Oh, but what they do in this one is they allude that he is potentially force sensitive because there's just certain things that he knows because it's the feeling. That's it. That's what we did for the homie Finn. This is a slight. The attack on the black community has left me scarred. It ain't cool. It is not cool at all, man. This was so easy. If there was just a plan going forward, but Kathleen Kennedy and all her wisdom said okay to all the things Rian Johnson did, and they had no plan for the future. We have a 3rd movie. Oh, let's try to fill it with something else. And that's what they did. And you know, like I said, on some level, I can't blame J.J. Abrams and to a lesser extent Chris Terrio for this because there's only so much they could have worked with. But at the same time, I feel like we could have gotten something at least better than this. Because a lot of the things in this movie would be great if there was build up and there was like attachment to these characters. I don't care about these characters at all. I don't. Which is why I can just never watch any of the sequel trilogy ever again and be okay. It shouldn't have to be like that, but it is. And can we also talk about how there's such a dick to 3PO? Like, Jesus Christ, I know they're trying to be funny and haha hee hee, like he's a droid, whatever. No, but C-3PO was nothing but like the kindest, warm, lovable dude out there. And they're just being such a dick to him in this movie until they need him. And then they wipe his memory and you're like, oh man, it sucks. 3PO's gone. Oh wait, no, I have a backup of his memory. Oh wow. Wow, so again, that was not necessary whatsoever. Jesus. Is there anything else I wanted to touch on in this movie? I mean, I keep saying squander potential and what they should have done, but I'll save that for another video. God. Ugh.